Greetings, strollers! I'm Kazu.
It's in.cygni.a.
I'm Halo.
I'm Java.
I'm wlforeverbana.
I'm Octyra.
I'm PG.
This is Fox with Wings.
I'm
Lapisn't.
I'm SeraQ.
I'm Slady.
I am Solito.
I'm Strawboober.
I am Rai606, also known as Rai.
And we are
the
Genshin
Guys Community.
Welcome all. This podcast is for fans of the Genshin Guys. Here we are talking about our opinions, experiences and dreams about the Genshin Guys podcast. If you like our show, don't forget to leave a thank you on Discord or wherever you are listening to the podcast. So, before we get started, Fox and Strawboober, how are you doing today?
I'm good, Kazu, thank you.
I'm doing good, Kazu, thank you for asking. It's very hot in Belgium lately. We're having a heat wave, so I'm trying not to melt, but Genshin is keeping me cool. So yeah, I'm doing good. How about you, Kazu?
I'm fine. I'm just a little tired. The last few weeks have been quite stressful for me, like had to work and the Dokumi preparations, of course, and yeah, also working on this little project here. But now I'm also very excited what Josh and Kahi will say to this little episode of our community. So I would say let me introduce today's topics. So, first of all, I have interviewed a few of our active community members. I have asked them a few questions, and I think the answers will be very interesting and exciting, and I'm really looking forward to it. The next topic would be everyone's anniversary or thank you message to Josh and Kahi. And then a few of our members have been very creative and prepared some quizzes, riddles, whatever you want to call it. And the last segment of today would of course be the last wish segment. So, I hope you are excited. Josh, Kahi, get ready for your little anniversary gift. Have fun. Let's start with the interview segment. Everyone, from which country are you listening to the Genshin Guys podcast? I'm listening from Germany.
I'm listening from the US.
I listen from the US.
I listen from the USA.
I listen to the podcast from Singapore.
I listen from Canada.
I am from the US East Coast.
I am listening from Brazil, a city called Belo Horizonte.
I'm listening from the East Coast of the US.
I'm from Sweden.
I am listening in from the United States.
I'm from America.
I listen to the podcast all the way from Belgium. We're a tiny little country in Europe.
I am listening from the southern part of Luzon, Philippines, a little region called Cavite.
Question number 2. On which streaming platform do you listen to the podcast? I listen on Spotify.
I listen to the podcast on Spotify.
On Spotify.
Normally I listen on Google Podcasts.
And I usually listen to it on Spotify.
I listen on Spotify.
I listen via Spotify
I usually listen to the podcast on Spotify.
I listen on Spotify.
On Spotify.
I mainly use Spotify to listen to the podcast.
I use Overcast on my phone.
I listen to the podcast on Spotify.
I'm using Spotify as my main platform.
Next question. When do you listen to the podcast? I usually listen to the podcast while driving to work or driving back home.
I don't really have a usual time or activity when I'm listening to the podcast. Sometimes it's just when I've got nothing to do, or sometimes if I'm studying but it doesn't require that much brain power, I guess.
I will usually listen to the podcast while I'm drawing.
I listen to the podcast while I'm at work. It really helps the shift go by.
So when I listen to the podcast, it's usually during work or before I go to bed, or maybe getting ready for work even.
I listen to the podcast when I'm driving to work each Monday morning.
Before I go to sleep.
On my way to work, while driving, and since I work traveling, it is quite common to be so bored during trips. So you guys are a big help.
Usually during my daily commute.
I listen to the Genshin Guys podcast while studying, playing video games, Genshin, haha, or just as something to listen to while I work.
I listen to the podcast while driving.
I usually listen when I'm doing my night shifts at work because those are slow and often I have enough time to listen to the episodes and it gets me through the day. It keeps my mind busy and I just enjoy listening to it. It's great. I love it. It's my favorite time of the month when I know that I'm going into my night shift. I'm always happy to catch up on the previous episodes.
I discovered the podcast after I happened upon JSide's Twitch stream and have been enjoying it while I take my breakfast or do my other morning routines.
The last two questions are: what's your favorite segment of the podcast and what do you especially like about the podcast? So for me, the most interesting segment is actually the lore learn along, because I'm really interested in the lore that is revealed in the game, but like in books or voice lines somewhere where you really have to read or listen into it for what I just don't have enough time. And that's a perfect way to learn this stuff. And what I especially like about the podcast is the whole chemistry between Josh and Kahi, because they are so different. There's a big contrast, but in a very fluent way, I would say. They're just really nice and funny, and the way they are talking is very pleasant.
Two things I really like about the podcast is how usually there's this either neutral or positive spin on everything that's discussed. I know that there's a place for criticism when discussing the media and the games that we love, but I see a lot of it, and so to have a space where everything's kind of looked at from a brighter standpoint is really, really nice, really uplifting. And then the other is that there's kind of a wider variety of topics covered, like from the lore to the voice acting and all of these other things. Like, it definitely makes room for a lot of people with different focuses within the game to come together and enjoy it and connect to the podcast, I think.
My favorite segment is All Weeks in Genshin, and I especially enjoy listening to the quiz episodes and the story summaries.
My favorite segment has to be the lore learn along. What I especially like about the podcast is how much it focuses on story and what's going on in the game rather than mechanics and character builds.
I really enjoy listening to the community question discussion every week when I listen to the podcast. Like, it's always very interesting to hear all the different views from different members of the community from all over the world, and it's so amazing how everyone is so interested about Genshin, and it really is very interesting to me. So I really especially like, listening to Josh and Kahi. They have this quiet humor and this chemistry between them. And I'm really, really very proud of how they have created this really safe and wonderful community for all of us to interact and meet with each other virtually.
My favorite part of the podcast is the Who's Voice Line and quiz segment. I especially enjoy the welcoming and tight-knit community that Josh and Kahi have built. It feels like everyone, including both podcasters, are my good friends.
I love the part when you guys react to
the community question answers. And I love how your personalities just mesh together.
My favorite segment of the podcast is the Learn Along. Because everyone knows I'm one of the crackpot theorists in the server. What I like best about the podcast is that there's a little bit of everything for everyone. And Jay and Kahi are so chill and accommodating.
I don't know if I have a favorite segment. I really enjoy all of them. But, I think if I had to pick a single favorite, it's when Josh asks Kahi, "How are you doing today?" And then Kahi, without fail, tells us about the weather or how his apartment feels. I really enjoy that. It's so specific. And, it's not exactly what you expect to hear on a "how are you" moment, but I really appreciate it. It's honest, and I love that. I love that for us. I like that the podcast really keeps it positive. I think that's really a really big part of what drew me to it. I think that it's super valuable to be able to have critiques and things that we would like and things that we want more of or less of. But I really appreciate that that Josh and Kahi really keep the focus on what is so great about this game and this community, and what can bring us together, as opposed to and also like taking from all perspectives. It's not just about what one part of the community thinks versus what this other part of the community thinks. They make a lot of effort to make sure that everybody's voices have a place on the show and that everybody's opinions actually count for something. Like I think the Genshin developers try to synthesize those in a way that makes a better experience for everybody.
Really like our weeks in Genshin and also Genshin news. The fact that you guys actually understand casual players.
I think I enjoyed the Genshin news segments that are in the podcast, but I do also like the riddles and little games and things that are also sprinkled in through some of the podcasts because it makes it feel a lot more interactive, which I enjoy. I like hearing about Josh and Kahi's thoughts on different events and story things like quests, for example, that get put out in Genshin. I think it's interesting to listen to what their take is on the different bits of lore that get mixed into the story.
My favorite parts of the podcast are the community input and the wishes section. One day we'll win.
My favorite segment would have to be whenever we go and review one of the new quests or stories. When we talk a lot about lore, I usually love that because I honestly often tend to skip through some of the dialogue if it gets too heavy. So I'm always grateful when we do a recap of that in the episodes so that I can catch up on what happened exactly. The thing I like about this podcast is just the way how it's put together. Like it all makes sense. I love how we have different segments, and I love how they there's a routine in it as well. Like every episode, what's gonna be happening, like what we start with and what we end with. I also really just like the sound of Josh and Kahi's voices. They're very soothing and very pleasant to listen to, and I think that does a lot when you're listening to podcasts. I think the podcast is super informative as well. Like there's just so much info and opinions and facts, and I love that about it.
I am particularly fond of the quiz episodes because they're always engaging, and as someone who enjoys the lore part of Genshin aside from its beautiful open world, I enjoy that I get to answer along. Josh and Kahi had done an amazing job formulating a podcast that is both entertaining and stimulating. Not only does the podcast have amazing topics being discussed, lore-wise and other contents. I also like that the Genshin Guys have pleasant voice that makes listening something soothing and a happy activity. I also love the choices for background music which adds to satisfying listening.
Thank you everyone for answering the questions. So, we will come to our next segment, which is everyone's individual message, anniversary message to Josh and Kahi. Thank you so much, Josh and Kahi, for the entertainment you are giving us every single week. Thank you for your really hard work. You are doing great, and you can really be proud of yourselves. And also thank you for creating this wonderful community around the Genshin Guys. And I also want to thank everyone in the community for not only for taking part in this project, but also and especially for making every single day in my life a little bit better. So, happy first anniversary, Josh and Kahi, and stay awesome.
I cannot say this enough, but thank you so much to Josh and Kahi for all of the work that they put into making the podcast and creating such a welcoming space for all of us within the community to come together and enjoy and discuss over this beautiful game. Happy anniversary.
I would like to thank Josh and Kahi for entertaining me on long and stressful days, and congratulate them for making it to 1 year.
And just like a personal message to Josh and Kahi, I really want to thank them for creating the Genshin Guys podcast. I remember how I randomly found you guys on Spotify, and back then I think it was only just 13 episodes. I've been listening to the podcast ever since, and I decided to take a dive by joining the Discord to get more involved. And you guys are like my first Discord community. So interacting with the wonderful people in this community has been really nothing short of amazing, and it helps when Josh and Kahin themselves as well as everyone are so friendly and so welcoming to everyone. I really feel like it's just one whole big family. So just want to end off by saying wishing you guys a great happy anniversary of 1 year of doing this podcast, and may our community core stay true and forever the same as we grow bigger and more established over time. Cheers to the Genshin Guys.
Thank you, Genshin Guys, for an amazing first year. Can't wait to see what's in store for the future.
Now I want to give you a huge thanks and a happy 1 year anniversary. Keep up the good work and have fun, as you two are excellent hosts.
I would like to take a minute to thank you, Josh and Kahi, for doing such a great job on the podcast. You guys definitely make my week that much more fun. I would also like to thank J-Boss in particular for being such an awesome boss and trusting me enough to help in this community, which is absolutely the best little corner of the internet. It's such a treat to work with you. Keep rocking it, Arkans, and see you in the Discord.
I would like to thank Josh and Kahi for making the effort to bring this to us every week. It is such a pleasure to see a new podcast episode out. I don't have to search for what I'm going to listen to at work. I know right away, all right, there it is, new episode, let's go. And similar to my answer to what I appreciate so much, it's just the positivity. They have together really created an environment that allows people to share a love for the game and the characters and the environments, and the experiences that it gives us in a really healthy and wholesome way. And I appreciate so much that we not only have the podcast where we can feel like, we're heard and seen and represented, but also the Discord where we can feel very much like part of the community. I am so glad that I have people to nerd out about this with.
So thank you for your work, keep on doing your own thing, and never change.
To Josh and Kahi, thank you both for organizing and uploading the podcast on the many different platforms and taking the time to both share your passions and your feelings about Genshin. Whether it's on livestream, recording, or in the Discord server, everything about the Genshin Guys community is all just very wholesome, and I'm very grateful for the warm and welcoming community. And I think part of the reason why is due to the two hosts who started it all. So really thank you for all you do. I'm glad to be a part of this community, and I can't wait to see as the Genshin Guys keeps growing.
Thank you, Josh and Kahi, for making these first 3 months a very memorable and great experience, both on the podcast and in the community. And may it continue for many months to come.
Josh and Kahi, thank you so much for creating this podcast, giving me something to listen to that I can be passionate about as well. But mostly thank you for giving us such an amazing community where everyone is welcome. It's always nice. People are amazing in this community, and you guys are as well. So thank you so much.
Josh and Kahi, thank you so much for creating a Genshin community for both enjoyers and lovers to hang out and have fun. More power to you guys, and happy anniversary, Genshin Guys podcast. Many more to come.
Thank you everyone for your sweet and kind messages. We will come to our next segment, which is the community quizzes / questions.
I will have order.
So a little note before we start. I have also sent you a link to a Google document where not only the people who didn't feel comfortable to record their voice have answered all the previous questions, there are also the answers to the quizzes and questions we have prepared. So you can think of your answers and then check in the document if the answers are right. And obviously, please make sure to also read the answers of our lovely members who are just too shy, too uncomfortable, not be able to talk and still wanted to answer and take part. Thank you.
I have a simple riddle for you guys now. I lived in liberty with no fear to tear me. A ship crashed and I felt abashed. Now I live in loyalty.
In the wild is where you and this fun guy first meet, because you needed help with opponents to beat. Even though we had just met, you left the competition soaking wet. Friendships were made along the way. It's just a shame they couldn't stay. Though no longer in your employ, they'll return someday and kindle joy.
I'm sorry for your loss, you cute little zombie. Now I understand the life you want to live. So can you let me be your best friend? I know you don't fit the cycle, and that's why I wanted to kidnap you. I realized my mistake, and I'll make an exception. I hope we can get better sometime. Who am I? Yahoo!
So now is the riddle that I made for you guys. It's a little long, so please pay attention. I've got a piece of the unknown buried deep down inside my bones. I've been weak and now I'm strong. I've also made a family of my own. I have been strengthened by the gods on a wet and desperate night. And if you find yourself at odds, I will help with all my might. Now pray, travelers, think of me. I hope I won't drive you insane. I promise you'll be glad to see once you've guessed what is my name. Good luck to everyone!
Of the upcoming regions, what are you most looking forward to?
And one last question Paimanyaka asked me to ask you is, which character would you like to record a podcast with, and what would the podcast be about? Thank you everyone for your creative minds and interesting questions. And we are coming to our last segment of today, which is the One Last Wish segment. And the One Last Wishes will be made by our lovely mods Solito and Rex.
Your mommy teach you that?
Alright, so I spent about 100 wishes on the stream trying to get my Kazu. So we're just going to toss in one little wish for Hytham, see what we can get. And it's blue. And it's a debate club. My first weapon in Genshin, and now my latest one. Thank you.
Alright, I'm Rex Lapisn't, and I'm going to be doing our last wish segment. I will be pulling on the standard banner. I am at 37 pity. Would really love an early. I've been pretty lucky. So not this time, it's blue. It is the Skyrider sword.
Oh no, no luck in the last wish segment. I still hope that you, Kaya and Josh, liked our little anniversary surprise. And a big thank you once again to everyone who participated in this project. You all did great, and I'm so happy we were able to put this together. And I hope that another year will come, and another year will come, and another year will come. So all I can say now is thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Add Astra Abyssosque.
Hostel Shio Mesase.
Enjoy.